All right, so I am Nikki Swift. I'm over that. So I got into 4-H, and I decided that other than showing cows, I would do photography projects. So I stole my mom's disc camera, which is really expensive. And I thought, I saw this project that was like my messy room cleanup, and I thought, this will be great. I'll tell the story of cleaning my room. It's clean, right? Right? Like, you can't tell anything is wrong here. It's perfect. That's gonna. Okay. Yeah, right? So, yeah, I wasted a ton of money and on photos just like that. But I later fell in love with the imperfect image. And so that's kind of a like thread that I started noticing as I was pulling this together. And then, so I got my own camera, and it was like this 110 cartridge camera, and you've got to have the obligatory picture of someone taking a picture of you, because you know that never gets old. So I thought that was so hilarious. And so then I decided, yeah, that was fun, but why not take Dad's camera, which was broken, or Mom said it was broken, and fix it. And so I pulled it out and tried to figure out why it wasn't working, and then took this, which won an award in 4-H. The scan doesn't totally do it justice, but yeah. And I did steal that photo from the internet. So yeah, I used that until I didn't realize it was on bulb. And so I got these magical ghostly images that again later would become cool. And then it actually did break because those old Topcons, the prism in them actually moved, right? And so you would hear this loud ka-chunk. And when it would go ka-chunk and then stop going ka-chunk, like that meant it was no longer going to make images anymore because that prism's slamming up out of the way. So I got my mom to buy me this, like, not so manual, not so SLR, but fancy Nikon camera. And then I took that photo for 4-H, and I think it got a prize too. And then, so my mom passed in 1995, and I moved to Iowa. And so then I had to continue photography in Iowa. And it was different out there. Like their judging process and everything was different. So it took me a bit to get used to it. Plus, I wasn't necessarily accident prone as a kid, but I dropped that camera on its zoom lens getting out of the car, and my aunt would not support me fixing it until I made money to fix it. So 96, I didn't really have a great photo because I was using a more disposable camera. But then I got it fixed, and then I took this, and it went to State Fair, and I got to do a special judging project. And the judges are like, well, wouldn't it be cool if you had a bear right here? And I'm like, you don't understand how close I was to that. If I had a bear right there, that photo wouldn't have happened. I'd be running. So, like, I kind of started to realize that people's perception of things didn't really matter. Exactly, right? So, but from 95 on, I had decided I want to make film. Like, I want this to be an extension of the photography. I want to make film. I'm going to make movies. And my aunt and uncle were like, well, this is your dreams and this is shit, which fills up faster. And I was like, well, screw you. So I made money, as much money as I could, and I went and bought that camcorder. And I told them that the school loaned it to me. And then smuggled it around in my book bag. Because I was on the newspaper, I was on the yearbook. The school did give me cameras, the school did give me stuff. And so it was believable, sorta. Enough to not get me in trouble. And so here's like my first, oh, where's my audio? I did not test my audio on George's system. Not that it matters. This is just us driving around near school. And so this is, as I created this slideshow, I was like, what are themes that I follow throughout? And me driving in a car or strapping a camera to a car is definitely a theme. Or using that old footage. And I have used that specific footage in a project before. So I took that camera everywhere. I made a lot of tapes that I really didn't do anything with, because back then it's like linear editing, right? So you're sticking the tape in and you're copying the section you want. And then you're sticking another tape in and you're copying the next section you want. And so I didn't really have access to computers at the time. Or an editing software probably in '98 was out of this world. So it was probably not a thing. But I did sometimes play with copying little clips onto VHS. But didn't really do much with those other than like stick my camera in people's faces and make them say stuff. But I also, at the same time, had this fascination with old abandoned things. And so when I came to college, you know, I'd go and drive and like take pictures of abandoned things, but I didn't have a sense of what I was doing with that. And so it just, that also became a theme. So 1999, I'm in college taking a photography class at OSU, and I met this guy. And so I am not your typical like artist. We met in a computer class, and I was supposed to make a backdrop for photography, and I was like, I don't know how to make, I can't even draw, I don't know what to do. And so he had just given me his number, and I called him and I'm like, help, I can't draw and I'm supposed to make a backdrop. So he drew my backdrop for me for photography. But I was more fascinated with comparisons. So my photography projects weren't necessarily about the art form as much as what does it look like if I take this photo with a disposable and a similar photo with a SLR and a similar photo with just a point and shoot and a 110, right? What does that same image look like with the same lighting that I have not controlled? So I didn't totally fit in photography, but I came to be a filmmaker, right? And OSU had just cut their film program before I got here, but Iowa didn't know that. So I struggled to fit in the program there at the time. And so we actually took a break from college for a while, and I'm still taking photos, and this is unplanned, but it becomes a fascination of what are layers and what, like, yeah, I could do that in camera, but is it going to go as planned? And so later you see me playing with layers in this in a very structured way. And so in these two top images, I'm taking those outtakes from earlier, those blurry moments or the photos that don't fit, and layering them with those abandoned structures that I like. I'm also at the time questioning what is moving image. So we had acquired this Mavica camera, which is a floppy disk camera that is just a little point and shoot, but it can do video. But when you pull the disk out, the video that you get is this tiled image. So you would have to put it together. And so what is video? And I have yet to do something serious with that, but I see potential in that. And so we had gone back to college in 2001, and we met our friend Rob here in, I'd say, 2003, maybe 2004. And we decided that we would follow him around with a camera because he was questioning why people kept saying, well, we could set you up with this girl. He's like, they know I'm gay, right? Like, they know, they have to know, right? Like, I keep dropping these hints. Why do they keep saying this? And so we followed him around, and we came to realize that, like, he wasn't totally out, and it wasn't totally clear. And people were asking us why we were following him around. So this is our first foray into documentary. And you'll see that I'm kind of all over the place, but that's kind of how my art works, is like I'm pulling from here and here and here and way back, way over here. And you can kind of see how some of these projects span years and years for me, or some of these themes. And this is a much different camera. So this is my first mini DV camera, and it was all the rage to have the 3-chip camera at the time. So then a couple years later, we get a DSLR, and it's our first attempt at like having a digital, like nice digital camera, and it does this weird thing every so often with the images. But I kind of like the breaking of the image. And so I threw that in because it kind of, it's a mistake, but it's nice. So we graduate in 2005, and then we decide that we are going to go to Kent State for a master's in library and information science because I am completely fascinated with archives and like storing old film and thinking about how to and so we, being the most technologically savvy people in our class at the time, decide that we are not going to make PowerPoints. No, those are beyond us. We are going to make films, and we are going to sit back and watch while people watch the screen present for us. But we still had to stand up and present before we hit go. And I was so tired from that I introduced myself as Matt and introduced him as Nikki. So that went so well. But here we're early on playing with green screen. And something I skipped when we first met, because I couldn't find a photo of it, like 1999, he sat on the oval and I filmed it with a VHS camcorder, and he had a microphone going into a tape recorder. And when I went to sync that, it wouldn't sync, right? And so like all of these like little nuances of learning how the tech works and breaking things, right? So he's actually in the piece that he presents in class, he's taking up a puff off a cigarette, and you can hear him singing because the sync just didn't work because they weren't timed properly. And so later I went back and tried to make them fit. And so a lot of my work is, how do I make this work? How do I go back and fix this? Or what went wrong here? So then around this time, I'm starting to make video pieces, and I'm taking those old videos from high school and playing with how they are brought forward into the present. So this is me talking about, this is 2 layers of me, and I'm playing with interlacing, making a fake interlacing of the 2 images together. One is me sitting, talking to a friend, eating a ton of licorice, and complaining about how much my aunt is a horrible, horrible human. And the other one, I think, is at a different friend's, complaining about my aunt and how she's a horrible human. So how do we take these pieces that are meant for the theater setting and make them go into a gallery or a space? Do you just put them on a TV? Does that fit, right? And so we're thinking about that, but we're not quite there yet. At a similar time, right, we meet Jen Deffenbaugh, and she's in town doing Project-A-Bug. So she's projecting into the back of her Volkswagen Bug and making it into a screen. So what are ways to play with projection and venue? She also made this tree and wanted content in it. And at the time, I'm playing with strapping cameras to things. So I'm getting these really small cameras and playing with the idea of, what does it look like if we strap a camera to a bike tire, right? And so that's what we end up putting in her tree. And I'm not going to show you much of this. Is it going to give me anything? Yeah, it is. But no controls? I want controls. Anyway, well, I guess not. Well, and you can kind of see it glowing in the tree, what she's projecting. And it should show up very quickly. That flicker is a bike tire, like going around and around and around. And you'll see it in a moment. And so it's her tree that she's completely constructed with our video inside of it playing. And I say our a lot because we collaborate. Matt and I collaborate a lot. And often we negotiate whose name is forefront. Is it my original idea or is it his? And who moved forward with the execution of the idea. I can't fast forward. This ruins everything. In a second. You can kind of see it flickering. There you go. Yeah, right? Kind of nauseating, but fun. And how does the camera depict that motion? Because the camera is not necessarily meant to do that, right? And so I'm playing with these little itty bitty webcams at this point. And I'm like, what does it look like? I'm thinking about health and fitness and like movement. And so what does it look like if I strap a camera to my arm or my leg? What does that do? And so Here's a test. And you'll see in here a lot of tests, right? So what does it look like when I do this, okay? I didn't totally like seeing my shoes, so how do I change this? How do I modify to get to the end project? And so these moving pieces became what I call city walks, and I've got another example of that in here. All right, and so that's the camera on my hand, but I'm moving it around, and so it's not just staying there. It clips on my shoe, or my calf, or my thigh, my arm, upper arm, whatever to get, and I'm making sure that it points out away from me. And in these, I had decided at some point to cut people out of the cities. Okay, so here's 9 of them all at once. And this started in, I started doing that in New Orleans. We went to New Orleans, and okay, it's just gonna keep going. And so I made the piece from New Orleans and learned a lot about what I was trying to do there, what I was trying to create. And so from that piece, I then created the rest of them. So we traveled to, I think we only made it to 12 different cities. And I was like, okay, how do I pick cities that I want to walk in? And I found this Gallup poll of wellness that I was like, okay, there's 188 cities on this. This is what it'll be. And in my head, and I never made it there, it would be 188 TVs just lining the wall with this noise that happens from a city just perpetually playing. And that noise in that 9-piece video is from all 9 of them put together. At the same time, I'm playing with the idea of what is it like if I take all these discs that we've acquired and project on them and make them into a screen. What does that look like? And I bank that idea. So I get these like little hubs that you can use, and I mount a few on the wall to see what it looks like, and then I just bank the idea until later. Also playing with what happens when I project through a player piano reel, or what happens when I project through something that is an early digital representation of data, right? So I've got these player piano reels, there's a test, and then I bank that idea. And this is not the right version. So I start playing with, and I've skipped several pieces that I made to get to here. So this piece, a friend of mine was dating a guy who had a band, and I was like, well, I'll play with one of your songs and see if I can make a music video. And then I took that music video and I remade it into this piece about a friend who was kind of feeling ennui, and I named it Ennui. And I've got all of those clips up, so I can show that later. Let's see what I have up here. Maybe? Nope. Did I put it in there twice? Come on. And so I had that lamentation, which is a piece about morning rituals, and I did all this research about the different rituals that we go through, and I'm not going to make you watch all this because this is like a 13-minute piece. And then what did we decide last night? What was the other piece? And then Can, so the piece with me eating the licorice. And those were my submission for the GCAC Media Arts Fellowship the next year. And that is the, what you're hearing that I don't have very loud is the minister from Mom's funeral reading her favorite Bible verse. And then I decide, well, I want to make this piece about going back home, because when my mom died, my aunt was like, I miss my home, and we left in 5 days, and I never saw my home again. Many reasons to hate her. And this is going on the internet. Like, so this is a recording of my mom dictating a letter to my aunt long before I was born. And she worked down here somewhere near what used to be COSI. And so I started that drive from there. And so what is it like to play with, and here I was playing with stereo. So like having a piece come out of one speaker and not the other and go back and forth. And I played a lot with that. And what I learned was sometimes the venue doesn't allow for that. So it was a problematic piece, and I had to then crush the stereo down into one functional channel so that it would play wherever it went. And that's about a 30-minute piece. And it is me putting cameras in cars and driving, because there's something about that. So 2014, my craziness finally gets on a plane, and I am terrified of heights, like terrified, like violently terrified. Like Matt's hand is mush by the time we're done. But I got a grant from GCAC to go to a conference, and I got on a plane. He survived. It was okay. He said it was the most turbulent flight he had ever been on. It was very turbulent. It was horrible. But we survived. And so I made it to Seattle, and I became fascinated with, so I travel with this little stuffed animal from when I was a kid. Her name is Elvira, and I take pictures of her places. One reason is, as a kid, I had an injury skating, and it ripped one of the ribs from my sternum, so I sleep with a pillow right here. But I can't travel with a big giant pillow, but I can travel with a little stuffed animal. So when I'm traveling, she's my so I don't wake up in pain. But then I take pictures of her because she gets to travel. I also, at the same time, became fascinated with the idea of the World's Fair and what it did for and didn't do for economies. And so I did not get a lot of footage there, but when we came back, I was like, I should have. I did play with, so I also started playing with morning and light and the time lapse and waking up in a different place. And so I set her in the window and let her wake up in Seattle. It's just a time lapse of what I played with. Come on. At the same time, I thought, well, this is an interesting medium for like audio and dictation, and I found this, and I was like, I convinced Matt to let me purchase it, and I couldn't quite get it to work, and so that went into storage, but I'm starting to play with the idea of audio, like older sounding audio. At the same time, I start at Hammond Harkins, and I do this documentary on Paul Hamilton and his giant installation at the hospital. A friend convinces us to do a 3 weeks of terror film thing where you have to make a film in 3 weeks, and we make one on a scary clown. And this dance couple who does improv ballroom dancing wanted us to make a film of them dancing in this haunted house, or this abandoned house. And so we go to Indiana, and where we made a piece called, what is that piece, Matt?
Slow Ascent.
Slow Ascent, yes. And so how do we make a film in a place with no power? Right? How do you work around these? And so a lot of it is problem solving. And around this time, I'm becoming the person that you come to when you want a video turned around in 6 hours, and because you didn't invite everyone to your wedding and they're throwing fits. I have done that. So I'm becoming the problem solver for unique video things. And Matt and I individually and uniquely were at the same time awarded Media Arts Fellowships. It is not the last, but I think there were only 2 more after this that they offered. And so, this is his student. Oh, you can't see my mouse. So it's his student who was awarded, and then us individually, and our bodies of work are completely different, yet people said, oh, you cheated. So at the same time, I'm playing with the idea of, okay, what if I take a still and mount it in different and unique ways? What does that mean? And so how do I play with like mounting and framing? Because, I can't participate in the same, well, until now, the same kind of presentation as other artists. So if I'm taking a still, what does that mean? And this is the time where I'm starting to play with the layers, the ghostly mistakes becoming layers over the abandoned houses and various things. So 2015, I'm playing with projection, and we're playing with ideas on how to project on things because we're part of the Independence Day Committee, and we're going to create this whole carousel of artists creating, and the project was called Artist Hand. And so I'm playing with a software that allows me to take the projection and skew it onto that house. And so we just popped up onto this trash can with our projector. We have a boat battery on a cart. Again, problem solving. So how do you do things without power? And so we're projecting onto this abandoned house in Franklinton in 2015. And again, that's just prototyping, testing. My city walks ends up in Moat Gallery, which is these front store windows. It was a brief thing. So how do I take something that is audio-based and looping and make it work in this setting? So prototype and testing, put a TV on a bench and see what that looks like. How do I create a city scene, like a cityscape? Yeah, I don't have anything right there. Is that playing? Come on. See, I didn't have time to re-edit everything. I started re-editing things, and then I'm like, I don't have any more time. So I put them in with the black tails, and we'll see. So so we painted the space black, and then Matt, because I can't draw, I have no skills like that, Matt sketched it out for me and drew the cityscape for this. Where am I at on time? Ooh. Yeah. And so how do we convey and since I can't fast forward, I can't do what I wanted to do. It's because I'm in presentation mode, I know. What have I done? Oh, wow. So, yeah. So, we put QR codes on the windows so that people could go to SoundCloud and hear the soundscape. And I had each of the TVs looping, I think, 2 of the cities each, and it would carousel around, right? At the same time, I am playing with sound. So I got a GCAC grant for the Sound Dome. And so how do I focus sound so that people don't have to put on headphones in a gallery or whatever? And so I'm playing with that, and you see first prototype, we're hanging it from our ceiling. Second prototype, we're just putting it on that system. And then that's sort of the system that we end up with for the pop-up for Independence Day. We're also playing with projection still, and so we created this fake thing that we called Lodestar, where we would go and project on things with our boat battery and then throw everything in our car and run away if anyone complained. We only did that a couple times. So, and that's sort of tests for the Independence Day thing. I'm also creating this collaboration with Jennifer Bender because she's going to be one of the people on the carousel atop Strong Water during Independence Day. And so she makes these images with various different pictures that she puts together. How does that look to do it with video? What does that mean to use video to encapsulate this fractured image? And this is only 2 minutes, so I can let it play. And then we took the sounds of the city, like I'd been playing with for the City Walks pieces, and overlaid this with that sound. And I think it goes in and then goes back out, but I don't know if I do that on the 2-minute piece. Yeah, it does. So we get to Independence Day, and we're above Strong Water, and we're hanging these giant sheets so that we can project onto those windows. And I just want you to see what it does once it starts playing. Anytime. You know, whenever it starts playing. Just picture it. It's above the windows of Strong Water, and I have it programmed so, and I did this manually. I didn't do this with a software because I didn't have 4 different computers. I think we were running 4 different Blu-ray players. So I took each one and built a grid on it to see where I needed to skew it into place so that it looked like it was projecting evenly. And so then I went and fixed it and then took off the grid, and then they carouseled around. So it was planned, hey, look at that. Slow. So each artist would appear small over here, and then around the corner, they would appear large. And so this is kind of what you will see projected. So disappointed that I can't. So Dan Gerdeman made his own. Matt had Michael Bush paint on, yeah, and it moves like that. This is my collaboration with Jen Bender. And, and then we had more than, I forgot, we had more than the carousel allowed. So you could see them pop in and move around. So there you go. So these are small. And then they come over here, and it's just full-sized one artist by itself. And years later, so some of the people we went to Cuba with said, there was this really cool projection above Strongwater one year. And I was like, that was me. I did that. And they were like, really? Yeah. So then we get back to tinkering to see what it would do. So I'm playing with this idea of this is my mom's dress, and thinking about things that I inherited from her, and playing with that idea. So we set up our one of our rooms to be a studio briefly, and recorded this. I didn't know what it would be, but I was playing with our juror for the spring was Natalia. Her and I were working together on a project for what was E's Gallery at the time. And so this was play kind of based on that, but I didn't know what it would be. And so then in 2016, it was like, what does it look like when I put words over it? What does it look like when I put it on a black and white TV? And I skip around because it's logical. At the same time, I am having to say goodbye to Mom's car. And so I'm starting to make pieces to make a film about that. And so we found this thing and this kit, and I built it, and you can kind of tell that I built it because I can't paint a straight line whatsoever. But I painted it and glued it together, and it worked for the duration of the piece. And then we wired this up to a PC power supply in our middle room there where I had done the piece in the pink dress, and set that up and made a fake console so that we could imitate this like retro feel of the cassette going in, right? And that's all I needed this to do, but you can kind of see the tires falling off. It's fun. It probably literally was falling off the real car. This piece has shown in many different countries, but was also accepted into the WEX, the Ohio Shorts for the WEX. So, yeah. And then after that, then my piece with Natalia, so she made these forms, I projected on them, and I projected pieces of nostalgia that the whole team put together. And then we had the forms watching a TV of like these, I think what we were watching was these like items of memory. Yeah. And again, I'm playing with the idea of what various ways can I mount and play with, not framing, right? And at the same time, we are approached to do this autism film, right? And so it's, again, adaptation. So it's how do we make a film when you can see they're ducking down, so we can't have these lights on them. This is just a test shot to see what we can do to these actors and learn from this. And at the same time, I'm playing with this idea of there was a show called Women on Women, and it was a show about women. And so I wanted to highlight local artists creating art and then putting that on a teleprompter and seeing them watch themselves. And so, but I don't want the apparatus of the TV. So what does that test look like? And so we bought hardware and mounts and mounted the TVs to these pedestals that we built. And that's the result. And so, and here I'm playing with unspoken language. So I'm using Braille dots to communicate. But those are, I'm taking the idea of dots in film and translating that to Braille. And what does that mean? So at the beginning and end, there is this text that scrolls over them that no one can read. At the same time, we are playing with, we take them back to the discs, and we're playing with projecting on that. And this is Independence Day the next year, so 2016, I think. And so this is in the Vanderelli room. What does that look like to project on all of these and create a screen? And so we take the idea of our film history, because that's what we did at OSU, and play with the idea of Muybridge, so dancing in front of a brick wall, and what does that movement look like? And when Matt comes out here, you'll see, this is a 360 camera, and I'm playing with that idea too. You'll see it reflect. This is not the best interpretation of it, but anyway. Also, I am playing with these 360 cameras, so what does it look like to mount it to a car? Because I have to put things on cars. I have to. And drive around. And there was one iteration of this where I mount them to the windows and point them in, so it kind of collapses on itself, and when I seam them together, it's weird. What does that look like, right? So it's all play. So 2017, the woman on woman thing become this collaboration, and Deidre Eccles and I create this piece on body shaming. So she draws all these comic book style things, and we collected a couple mannequins and painted them, and then had people interact with it and body shame the mannequins. So it's a piece on body shaming. And then I made a piece of projecting, so playing with the idea of projecting, I took these forms from IKEA and strung them up in our studio, because at this point we had bought a new house and we had a studio, and I strung them up in our studio and then projected on them these forms of ideal beauty. At the same time, our world kind of went sideways, and we decided that wouldn't it be fun to resurrect Lodestar and take our boat battery out and project anti-45 things on the side of 315 at the hospital. And we only got one heckler. At the same time, I'm deciding to play with live streaming, right? And so I create this whole show called Columbus Creatives Live, and that's Jennifer Bender. And I had people come on our show to talk about their art and trying to, I think I posed this to GCAC as I'm timid, I need practice. Give me this live stream device so that I can come out of my shell. It comes up later. So we do this for a couple, and then we decide, oh, we're tired, we need a break from this. Having people in our house every few Sundays is exhausting. At the same time, I decide I can fix that recording device, And so I now have two, and I'm trying to cobble them together. Still don't know what that's going to look like yet. But now I'm playing with projection on those player piano reels. And what does that look like? And what does it mean to put them offset with two projectors, right? And so we start blacking out the sides of them, and I come up with this, it's past, and then the center is present with this table, and I'm basing the whole idea on Vonnegut's player piano. And then the other side is future. So I paint the side out on the past as white so that it's really reflective when I project onto it. And then the inside of that one is black, so you can't really see the future from that one. And then the projection from future is black, and you can kind of see the past, and so the light kind of intermixes. And I didn't have a photo of that, but I think I have the, nope, that's intermittency. I can pull that up later. I'm also playing with the idea of what are these outtakes. So I take all these like mistakes and outtakes and put them together in this idea of what defines us. And I'm playing with, this doesn't have sound, so I'm playing with the idea of the moments in between the major moments are kind of what define us. And at the same time, we are asked to do, so this is now 2019, we are asked to do this residency at Bridgeway Academy. So we're still working on our film Twosome, but what does it mean to teach children on the spectrum to make film and communicate what they're doing? And so again, creative problem solving, and I'm only going to show a second of it, but it's this series of short films on bullying and their communication of what bullying means. And so the Thurber House helped them write their scripts. We helped them film, and we let them rotate who was filming. They selected who was acting. So this is all led by them with us just helping. We got them to that point. And then one day, Michael Reese walks into the gallery at Hammond Harkins and says, "Your husband's in film, right?" And I'm like, "I'm in film too. What are you talking about?" He's like, "I need a filmmaker to go to Cuba in 2 weeks." And I'm like, "We're crazy. We'll fix anything. We'll do anything." And so we went to Cuba with Michael Reese in 2 weeks. And at the same time, I am still fascinated with not only the World's Fair, but the Olympics and what that brings, that camaraderie or false camaraderie of the world. And that just now became a piece that I'm not sure is solid. And then 2020 happens. And AJ Vanderelli had asked us to make something for her gallery and gave us the whole space. And I was like, well, I wonder if I can take these cell phones that I've been collecting and make them actually loop video. And so I spent from October 2019 to up until we installed in January of 2020, trying to get these phones to do what they do. And then lockdown happened. And I am working at a school teaching, I'm working at ACPA as an artist in residence, teaching how to make, teaching some of the kids how to make. And I jokingly turned to the person I was working with and said, "You know, if we have to go into lockdown, I can live stream this for you. I can take your content and make it available for all of the students so that they have some continuity in their education." And he's like, "It's not gonna come to that, Nikki." And a week later, we developed something like this. And I'm running that by myself. So I'm running audio and video, and I'm mixing these two cameras together live on the fly. And I ran a couple of these shows. I ran one out of my basement for Michael Reese, and that is a live stream with participants in California, and we're in Zanesville, and I'm doing all of that myself while Matt is making people be organized and trying to herd all the people on our site. I was also told in 2020 that I was a Governor's Award winner for my business support of the arts, and then everything went into lockdown. And so, yeah. And so it took them, I think it took them a year to actually have the virtual celebration. So I just kind of sat on that for a while. What is this? And if you want to see awkward Nikki, look up the footage of them giving us those awards, because that's hilarious. I am on the stage awkwardly going, where should I be? At the same time, we finish during the pandemic our, and this is just the teaser, our autism film. What else do I have to do, right? I can edit a 2 hour or an hour and a half film. And so we finish this up, and we have to show the screenwriter. So we buy a blow-up screen and a transmitter for radio, and we all park behind Food for Good Thought and watch this. Watch the full-length thing, because how else are you going to do things when you can't see people? And so, again, creative problem solving upon creative problem solving. And this is, okay, we can't light our actors. How do we work with them? We take them outside, and we just use reflectors if we have to. And we just let them. And so this is the test of what if we just make them just walk through walk through Clintonville. And there's magic here that is not our magic in a moment. This is totally the actress's magic. That cat fell in love with her. She named it Snowball Fluffy Princess something, 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 I don't know. That is not its name, that's what she named it. So I decide, I have fallen in love with Shop Goodwill. I can get these photo frames and test them, because some of them do play video, and I already had a few that were gifted to me. So what happens if I put video on these? And how do I solve for the short cords? How do I solve for all of this? And so that's a test. I'm not soldering anything here at the moment. I do have a soldering iron there, though, which is... and what does it mean to take a board so that you might paint on or something and cut it out and inset the video into that? So, and this might be my next to last slide. And what I left out of this while we're waiting for that to, so also because I was doing the, I can't pause that, I don't think. So because I was doing the live streaming, I got connected with Wave, and I could take a Zoom call and make it look better than recording in Zoom. And so they needed this Bridges of Love project to record the women in prison, because we couldn't go in, talking about their experience. And so this is my Zoom recordings from my problem solving for that. And then we expanded that. They expanded that in 2022. I went in and took a ton of gear in, and I do not have the photo of me with a 10-foot backdrop, taller than me, that I had to take into prison. It was hilarious. And so we went in getting women telling their stories. And that's the Life Stories Project that won a GCAC award. So this is me playing with projecting on a house-shaped item from IKEA. So it's a greenhouse, and it's house-shaped. And what does house mean? I'm playing with the idea of what does house mean. I'm also then playing with the idea of buying a house and the struggle, almost comparing it to an eye exam. And so better one, better two, is it in focus? And so we hung these sheets in our backyard on a pop-up tent and then projected onto them the two different houses. And that is the end of my slideshow because I broke PowerPoint with all those videos. PowerPoint told me I was done. That doesn't mean I'm done. It doesn't mean I have to be done. I have videos that I could show. Yeah. Or we can take questions. I can take questions. Because what, I'm way over? Not way over. I'm 11 minutes over. Yeah.
Were those interviews with prisoners?
Yeah.
Okay.
Through Zoom. Yeah. Those were because we couldn't go into the prison. And so they brought me in because I had developed this way of making Zoom look better than Zoom. And so
You had one place where you were playing with some audio, old audio. Was that a dictaphone?
I do have a dictaphone in there. Let's see if I can find that.
It kind of looked like it to me, but I wasn't sure.
I liked your projections too. Those were, yeah, she's looking for the dictaphone. I'll wait.
Well, I don't have anything of the dictaphone. I have the first project that came with me playing with the audio. I didn't quite get the audio there, but I was fascinated with the idea of sorry, I guess I can't think.
Do you have a GoPro?
I do have a GoPro. I have broken so many GoPros. They're not meant to be continuously powered, and I want to continuously power, and then they overheat, and then they die. They don't like me. Yeah.
Okay, I was just,
So are all the images on these cameras?
I have a credit.
So yes, and part of that is something that I didn't get into is so when I was a little kid, I would go to my grandparents and say, they had these albums of each of their kids and their lives, right? And so since my cousins are in California, and my other cousins are in Southern Ohio, but we rarely saw each other because everyone's older than me. And so I had this fascination with seeing their photos, right? So what have my cousins done? My cousins in Iowa, even though that became a thing later, all of this this idea of looking at, I love vacation photos. I have this really bad thing of making people show me their vacation photos because I just love that, right? And so part of this is built out of that, right? So we take so many photos and now video that don't necessarily mean anything to anyone other than the person that did it, and maybe not in the future. And so all of these are from my collection of, wouldn't it be cool if, and I think that was my theme for this whole presentation. Wouldn't it be cool if I could do X or whatever? And so, yes, I collect all these.